It's Magic Time, the podcast dedicated to helping you create magic in your everyday life. And now your hosts, author and creativity coach Ryan Hall and Reiki healer and holistic life coach Emily Perkins.
So, Ryan, I feel like you really need to set us up with this beautiful woman because you have such an awesome connection with her, and we'll just do her so beautifully justice.
Absolutely. It is my privilege to welcome a very dear friend of mine to the program, Miss Michelle Akin. Michelle is I like to call her a semi-retired YouTube celebrity. She's a gifted vocalist. She's a mommy to just a stunning one-year-old little lady. But she's more than just my OG coach. She's just, like I said, a friend and a mentor and truly one of the finest coaches our craft has. And she's also, in a way, why Emily and I ever even met. It is a privilege to welcome Michelle Akin to Magic Time.
Welcome. Hello. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. I love talking, so this is great.
Well, sure. And you also love flattery, too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, mindless flattery. Well, as Emily said, and this program is called Magic Time, and I think the first question I want to ask is just, what is magic to you?
It's a great question. It's funny because I'm launching a program in a few months with magic in the title. But I guess I'm a super Harry Potter nerd, Potterhead. It's in my Twitter bio that I'm a Potterhead, which is, I had a moment of, do I put this or do I not put this? No, it's a really big part of who I am, actually. Because I think that for anyone who's read Harry Potter, and if you haven't, I envy you. I wish I could do it again for the first time. It's such an amazing look at how we relate to life because, and I'm going to get to my definition of it, but like when you read Harry Potter, you're being present to the journey of children going to school to, they are magical, but they're learning their craft. So they are wizards already. They have the ability to do magic, but they don't know how to hone it yet. And some of them are really into it, and some of them are like, oh, this is just school, it's dumb, whatever. And to which I look at it and I'm like, how could Ron Weasley not be so into classes at Hogwarts? Like, if I was there, I'd be like Hermione. I would be devouring everything. And then if you take it and map it onto our regular lives, we don't devour everything the way that we say we would if we could do magic. So we don't relate to ourselves as able to do magic. And I think that's kind of funny. It's kind of funny to look at their world and then map it onto ours. And so I think it's the untapped resources of life. There's just possibility all around. All you have to do is believe in it, and then you can make things appear out of nowhere. You can make impossible results come to fruition, but you have to believe in it first and be hungry for it. Otherwise, it's just a nice idea.
Yeah, it's just a nice idea until you put it into practice, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Michelle, I knew that we would like each other as soon as you said Harry Potter. I was like, yeah,
it's a bond. It's a bonding agent.
The fellow magician.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's like something, I mentioned actually on the first episode, something that really kind of blew my mind was just what the translation from Hebrew of the word abracadabra.
What is it?
It just blew my mind. It's like, it's a very loose translation, but it's like, by my word, I create. And it's
Whoa.
like, yeah.
That's mind-blowing. That's amazing.
Yeah. And it's like, until you can actually put that into practice, it's like, you've got this, but like, you don't really know that you have it. And it just, it's kind of like what we do as coaches. It's just like really connecting and tapping into our clients and like the people that we meet, just really tapping into that highest and best self, that essence as we call it. Just to really, just to really kind of like support them in tapping into their own magic.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. By my word, I create. I love that.
Yeah.
Because it contains integrity, by my word,
Yeah.
which is so important. We say at accomplishment coaching, one of those distinctions that we have is insight plus action equals results. And my colleague, who I think you also know, Mark Hunter.
Yes.
Have you met Mark? He added this thing to that equation of integrity. Insight plus action plus integrity equals results. Because if you're not going to be your word, then the insight and the action aren't going to yield results. They're going to be, for nothing. But because you also have to be your word around the action that you say you'll take, and to have integrity around the reason why you're doing it. That's what yields results. So sometimes people are like, I got the insight, I took the action, but it was from an empty place. So I love that.
Yeah, no,
And
exactly.
Yeah. And it is kind of like, to me, what I hear in that too is that like part of like that not being the empty place, like coming from a place of magic and possibility and belief and heart is actually kind of really what fuels that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally. And that's how you make spells work.
Yeah, you have to believe in it.
Yeah. Wingardium
to say
Leviosa.
I love you.
I figured you. Yeah, I figured you would.
A lot of Harry Potter references in this pod. I was just writing down abracadabra, by my word I create, and then I dropped my pen on you. So apologies for the sound.
Yeah, it's like it translates the same in Hebrew and in Aramaic. So it's yeah. Yeah, I think I'm the only one in this conversation that has actually never read a Harry Potter book.
So jealous.
What?
Jealous.
I know.
Seriously?
Yes.
One day it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Emily,
I'm having a moment.
It's gonna be okay. Aren't you jealous though? Wouldn't you love
I'm
to
so
erase
jealous.
them and start over? I would love to just start over. I mean, though I will say I've reread them many times and I forget a lot of stuff that happens, but I did go through a binge reading period of my life where I just kept rereading them over and over again to the point where I kind of started to memorize them.
Nice.
They're probably still in my brain.
Oh my gosh, Ryan, when you do start eventually getting into the Harry Potter books, which you have to tell Michelle and I so that we can relive it with you.
Oh man, it would be fun to run a first time Harry Potter reading, like a Harry Potter virgins group, and have everybody, it's like a book club for people who never got started or are getting started very late in life. And
okay.
and then they can meet every week and basically have a book club for it. Oh, if you don't do it, Emily, I'm going to do it.
Do it.
I've already got Yeah. Even though every time I take a train into Grand Central, I think, was this what you had in mind for like the train station in the movie? I've seen a couple of the movies, but like it's never really been my thing.
It's London.
Don't hurt me.
New York.
I know.
King's Cross Station. It's an actual thing.
Well, true.
Not fancy.
Well, as we mentioned, to try to get off this Harry Potter kick before I, start getting into too many context here.
Go ahead.
What?
I said into old curmudgeon mode.
Exactly. Yeah, get off my lawn. Talk a little bit about how you got into coaching, because I mentioned you. You were like doing the YouTube thing for a while and did a lot around video production, and had a couple of famous friends. So just kind of give us a little bit of background about yourself.
Yeah, so I was a video producer, comedian, working it out in New York City, freelance video editing. I got a gig doing a documentary about people with interesting jobs. I actually got, and through someone I met on Tumblr, who basically he got the job, but he couldn't do as much editing as they needed done in a very short period of time. So it was like, here's all these mini documentaries, $500 a pop, as many as you can do. I'm like, okay. I will, and I quit my my desk job, and I just started doing this full time. And I got this one that was this woman named Marie Forleo, who is a life coach. And I started watching the raw footage because before I start in on a documentary edit, I'm going to watch all of the footage and see what I have. And just listening to her talk about her journey and what she does for a living, I was completely taken in, and like, I have to know this woman. And so I found her online. I found her on Twitter, and she had like somewhere between 7 and 14,000 Twitter followers. So she had made like a decent little dent for herself. And I mean, she's got hundreds of thousands now. She's far eclipsed where she was when I first met her. And a lot of that had to do with the work that we did together, because I basically reached out to her. And when she found out, she's all about women's empowerment. And when she found out that I edited the documentary and I'm a woman, which is unusual, or it's more usual now than it was. But when she found out, she said, I'm out of the country. Write me an email. Tell me everything about you. We're having lunch in New York City next week. Here's the venue. And we ended up having this 3-hour lunch and just discussed what we were going to do together. And as I did more and more work with her, and she's a trained life coach. She actually trained at Coach U back in 1999. She's also been on Wall Street. She's done. She's worked for major magazines. She was a Nike dance athlete. She's this amazing person, right? And when I saw her, I was like, I need to be connected with you, and I need to learn from you. And she really became a mentor to me, and like a sister. When my mom was sick, she came to visit her. She was at my mom's funeral. She's a part of my family, essentially. And now she's this like huge, she's been on Oprah, and she's on Super Soul Sunday and all this stuff. And I was along for the ride of all of that. And while I was along the ride, I realized that I wanted to do what she does. And I'm directing her from behind camera, and I'm wanting her to say things that I want to say that are my voice, not her voice. So it was driving me a little insane because I didn't have an outlet, I realized. So I started one separate of my comedy stuff, though I still kept it silly and called it Fart with Headphones On, which is the concept of which is like, I was on the subway platform. I was listening to really loud music and noise canceling headphones. I farted, and then I went, oh, like I got embarrassed. And then I realized that I don't even know if it made a sound. So I don't even know if I should be embarrassed. And I'm like, wait, should be embarrassed? And I just had this like weird life epiphany on the subway platform listening to Regina Spektor. And I was like, that's a crazy idea right there, because we put stuff out in the world, and then we worry what other people think about it, and it just doesn't matter. It just does not matter, and you can't censor yourself and all this stuff. So I started a blog and a YouTube channel based around that concept, and then basically a life coach that was a leader with accomplishment coaching. She had been a fan of all my comedy stuff over the years. And then she saw that I started this new channel and reached out to me and said, have you ever thought of becoming a life coach? And at the moment that she sent me that email, I was researching life coach training programs and wishing that like someone would just tell me something about the industry and what I should be doing. And then the email pops in, and I emailed her right back, and we got on the phone. I hired her as my coach the next day. 4 months later, I gave up my entire video production practice, including Marie Forleo as a client, to my assistant editor, who is still working with her. And I never looked back. I just became a full-time coach as soon as I joined the program. I got 7 clients in 2 weeks, which is, I think, still a record in the company.
Damn, nice, lady.
Yeah. It was pretty crazy and in a whirlwind, and really horrifying at the same time, because I had all these people in my schedule, and I was just having a complete nervous breakdown about doing sample coaching sessions. And I just remember my husband put his hands on my shoulders. He's like, you can do this. Go get on the phone. Like, I am just going to cancel them all. I wasn't ready. When I scheduled these, I didn't know what I was doing. Why did I do this? Why do I have to? And then the third person I talked to that Monday said yes to hiring me at $550 a month and gave me their credit card information.
Amazing.
And it blew my mind. And then that just started happening every day for a while until I stopped trying.
Goodness gracious. I'm just going to say there's a little jealousy involved there, but I don't want to get into that. But yeah, no, I really like, I really appreciate, and I don't think I've ever actually heard like this background of the story, just how serendipitous everything came together for you. Dare I say, almost how magical it came together for you.
Oh, it definitely was, because especially that moment when she emailed me, I did not make that up. And I remember thinking at the time, no one's going to believe me that this just happened, because I really was on a bunch of different life coaches websites trying to figure out, how do you get training? What are the certifications? How do I know like, there's so many programs, there's so many trainings. How do you know? And there aren't a lot of really clear-cut resources for that out there. So I'm actually working on creating one that I'm not going to speak into existence yet, because it's so just the beginning stages of an idea. But I would love to make it easier for people to understand the ropes of what coaching is and how to get into it, because it was so hard for me. And not everyone is going to have a magical coach email them at the moment that they're looking, though. Sometimes I reach out to people on YouTube and say, have you ever thought about becoming a coach? Because that's a thing. And actually, one of the people that just started in the DC coach training program is someone who was watching me on YouTube for years, heard me talk about the coach training, left me a comment that I happened to look at, because I don't really look at comments. And she said, would you be open to talking to me? And I answered her right away and said, sure. And within like 2 conversations, she'd registered for the program, which is really cool.
Nice.
Awesome.
Nice. It's incredible just how often, at least with you, it seems like you find incredible people just by like reading stuff online. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Am I supposed to tell our story now?
We can get into that. I mean, we can certainly get it. Yeah.
Because Brian, the thing that I do.
Yeah. Speaking of Tumblr, by the way. Yeah.
Oh yeah, which doesn't really exist anymore, I would say.
Yeah.
It's there, but nobody uses it. The thing that I do, and the way that I found Ryan and everybody else, is just go do what I want to do and what I'm good at online, and then people naturally find me. In fact, Marie Forleo wanted to. We were doing some videos, and I showed her my music channel on YouTube, and I would make these music videos all by myself. Meaning like set up a really cool camera situation, sometimes on a dolly on wheels or whatever, and then make my own music videos without anybody else's help, which is totally a product of my survival mechanism and the part of me that doesn't like partnering with people. So I was hell-bent on figuring out how to do really high-level stuff without anybody helping me, and it was my big point of pride. It's no longer my point of pride. I love that little version of myself, but she was very naive. And now it's all about building teams, right? But
sound familiar, Emily? Sound familiar?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's everybody, right? But yeah, she saw my music videos and she said, "Could we do this?" And we started doing these high-end, ridiculous lip-dub music videos, which brought in so many clients, so much money into her business. And it's the same thing for me. It's like when I go out and just do the thing, like what I did in order to meet Ryan and get him as a client, which was my intention, and yet I was also unattached. I was on Tumblr looking at my tags. If people tag me, I look at what it is. And this guy, Ryan Hall, had read one of my newsletters and wrote a little piece about how it impacted him and inspired him. And I thought that was so great. And I noticed I'm a very critical writer. So I'm very critical of other people's writing. And when someone's a good writer, I notice immediately. I'm like, oh, that's good writing. So I thought his post was really well written. And I reblogged it and said, "Dear Ryan, you need to hire an ICF credentialed ontological life coach as soon as possible. It doesn't have to be me, but it can. Here's how you get in touch with me. Either way, I hope you do, because you're going places and you need to do stuff, whatever." And then he got back to me and we ended up working together for a few years.
Yeah, it was like a little over 2 years before I joined the program. And just just really the beautiful thing to me, and I don't even know if I've really even shared this with you, is that like there was a time that like I was like really at the lowest point in my life. Like I was just like totally like just kind of hopeless. It was like maybe about a year before we started working together, and I think that was right around the time that I started following you on social media. And I remember like at the lowest point in my life, I like kind of pulled myself out of it. And like I was unemployed at the time. I'd been unemployed for a while. Just like crazy depressed. And I remember writing down on a yellow legal pad, sitting in my truck one day, just the 3 things that I needed to do to really get support: get hired, get a job, get into therapy, and check into this coach that I had heard about. And this was like a year and a half, I think, like a year and a half before we even met. And it just ended up being such a, such a beautiful partnership, I believe.
Absolutely. It's weird too, because I always think back to that time, because I after my mom passed, I became a coach a few months after I lost my mom to brain cancer. And I have found in my travels that I meet more and more people who have lost their moms or are in the process of losing their moms. So when I start talking to Ryan and he tells me that, his mom passed at some prior point, I just had another moment, sort of like when that life coach emailed me of, oh, this is my client. And I have that every time I talk to somebody on a sample coaching session and they mention that they lost their mom. I'm like, oh, so I'm your coach. Yep. And it's not like I'm going to go out and advertise it as a niche or something. I could do coaching with people who are dealing with grief, though I don't know that I'm past through mine enough to feel confident doing that. But I do tend to find a lot of people who are going through it. It's weird. It's a bit magical if you.
Yeah, that's totally what I was thinking too as I was listening to you talk about it, and also listening to you talk about how you got into coaching. Like, I guess what I hear so much in that is that, like, when you're aligned with what fuels you and like what you love and something that you're passionate about and you feel so deeply within yourself, it naturally vibrates and radiates outward and just brings in the resources, the people, the experiences that you're looking for. And like that, there's just nothing more magical than that to me.
When the student is ready, the master will appear.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah, like attracts
so
like.
True.
Yep.
Great. Quick. Anybody else have a cliche?
One more.
Pete, you got a cliche for me? Okay. Yeah. No, it's just, it's just so, it's just so cool to me just to really almost kind of relive this, just to kind of see like how far I've come since you and I met, and just to, kind of see where I was and, where I've come at this point. And, it's just really, I just think it really kind of speaks not only to the power of coaching, but really to the power of support.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to find, it can be hard to find the people that are going to support you if you haven't been really vulnerable and really yourself, because what I think one of the reasons I really wanted to work with you, Ryan, is because you were just so raw, and you were really stuck in your story, but like really wanting to not be in the same, like almost equal measure, which was a challenge for me. It was a big challenge for me because it was so similar to my own inner monologue that I just kind of just wanted to throw you out the window, to say like, you can't afford me, bye, and get off the phone with you. But for whatever reason I didn't. And I really think it's because of what you were willing to share and how I was able to see that we are supposed to work together. So I just didn't give up.
Absolutely. And actually, during the time that we were working together, my father passed away. And I've said this about you before, and I'll say it again, you ended up being the biggest cheerleader for me during really the most challenging year of my life. And I am a published novelist because, in no small part, that you never gave up on me. So, I mean, I just certainly want to thank you and honor you for that at this time, in this public space.
Yeah, it's not easy, man. Like,
no, it wasn't easy. I just, yeah.
None of it was easy. It sucks, like, and that's the first thing I say to people when they're losing a parent is this effing sucks. It's the only thing that makes any sense to say. There's no like prettying it up. It just sucks. It's the worst. And you need a lot of support.
Yeah.
And then consequently, I've realized that anytime any loss happens in my life, even if it's a friendship or colleague leaves or whatever, I almost relive losing my mom every single time, because current grief brings up past grief. So it'll like swoop in. And I've learned enough from coaching to know that that it's not, like, for instance, we had a few people leave our team in DC, and I was having a lot of emotional reaction to it. And then I just stopped and sort of said, this isn't about the people who have left, because I don't even know them well enough for this to be about them. This is about, like, people who have left me in the past. This is about losing my mom. That's what's coming up. The anger and the sadness. It was really anger. I get really angry sometimes when people like leave or disconnect from me in some way. Anger is like, and I don't wield anger very well. I tend to repress it. So when it comes out, it's very unwieldy. It's very like, I don't know what to do with this. And thankfully, because of coaching, I can sit back and go, oh, it's not personal. It's not about that particular person and why they're making me mad. It's like, I have unexpressed grief that I need to deal with. And thankfully, an event or, a circumstance came into my life that's going to have me go look at it, because unexpressed grief is like the worst. It's so detrimental to inspiration, to forward progress. It's this, like, Stephen Levine describes it as this quiet hum that you don't notice, sort of like if you have the air conditioning on and then you turn it off. You ever have the experience of turning the air off and then going, oh, I didn't even realize that sound was annoying me.
Yeah,
it's like
totally.
that. So I'm constantly like, oh, am I not? I still have unexpressed grief? Yes, of course you do. Of course, because there's always more. I don't mean to sound like doom and gloom. There's always more grief to feel, but it's part of being a human. You're constantly processing things, and if you don't process them, you will one day.
Absolutely, and you will one day in an unhealthy way.
Yeah, or at the last moments of your life. Because, I mean, I feel like people are most profound in their last few minutes here on Earth, or perhaps months if they're lucky. I know, like, my mom just was a totally different person in the last few months there. It seemed like she was connected to something totally different, and like the human, normal side of her was scared, and then there was this other part of her that was weirdly calm and peaceful. I recall this. And just being like, that's interesting.
Wow.
But I think that you get to a point where you've accepted what's happening. And so you've nothing to lose. You have nothing to be afraid of. It's happening. And that's why I think the grief work is so important, because if you can express it, be with it, and accept it, and not be scared of it, not be scared, then you're so much more powerful in life.
Yeah, totally. And I think that, to me, I think that's one of the most beautiful things that I learned in the coach training program, which we will certainly talk about in great deal because I know it's a pet subject of yours. But like, one of the things that was really beautiful for me was just like you can like recall. Like I was able to recall certain incidents in my life that I had grief around without reliving it. Mm-hmm. And I think that was one of the most beautiful things that I learned, was just really that kind of, I guess, and I know it's a pet subject of Emily's, but just kind of that spiritual, without being dogmatic side of kind of the teachings that accomplishment coaching has.
Mm. Yeah, kind of the magical part of it.
Ooh, man. My favorite part, obviously.
Absolutely. Well, if you've just tuned in, first of all, what's wrong with you? You need to rewind to the beginning of this episode and check the beginning of this, because this has been gold.
I love it. If you've just tuned into this podcast that you hit play on.
Always 10 years experience of talk radio. I can't shake it.
Oh, it's great. I love it, Ryan.
We're joined by Michelle Akin, life coach extraordinaire, and really become a real mentor to me since I became a coach myself. And one of the things I wanted to talk about here in our conversation. I wanted to talk about like the power of trust in order to really create the just magical, awesome things that all of us are up to. Just speaking for me personally, and I'd love to get both of y'all's thoughts on this, but just for me personally, just learning how to trust my gut, trust my intuition of my talent, of my skills, of my, of my skills as a writer, of my skills as a coach, has just really been huge for me in like setting up the next 35 to 40 years of my life the way that I really want them to go. So I'd love to get some thoughts on just the power of trust in how magic works. And Michelle, you are muted.
Whoops. Thought I unmuted.
Your mouth was moving and nothing was coming out.
What I said was, Emily, why don't you go since we've been talking a lot?
Oh yeah, and it's funny because I was actually like chomping at the bit over here, wanting to jump in to answer that question because it's interesting to me because like part of listening to what you were talking about, Ryan, like so much of, at least throughout the coach training program for me, was about learning to trust my intuition deeper, especially with the intuitive work that I do on a daily basis. But like, honestly, I think some of the deepest magic for me came from learning to trust my humanity, and integrate the two of them instead of them being separate. Like I always thought that my intuition, my magical side, and my human side is also magical, but like my intuition was pure and right and like completely separate from my human side. And learning to trust my humanity and the beauty of my own humanity was actually what really kind of allowed me to blossom into myself and look at all the judgments that I had about myself and embrace my survival mechanisms and the part of me that doubted and didn't trust, and kind of like flourish within it. So like a big part of it was learning to trust my intuition, but a big part of it was also really learning to trust my humanity within all of it. So I don't know about you, but how did it feel for you?
Well,
Michelle,
actually, I'm curious about something that you said, because you said like there was a disconnect between your intuition and your humanity. So like, did you have it like intuition is, I don't know, like how do you define intuition from that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, I think that I previously had defined intuition as like divine and ethereal and magical, and human as earthly and grounded and
got it. Okay.
But now I see that they really aren't separate.
No, they're the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, my humanity is a part of my intuition, and there's also a divine connection within it, which also helps to make it magical. Like it's both.
Yeah. There's so many contradictions in life. There's we're just in a world where we're all trying to define things and get the right answer and everything. There isn't one. And it's like, I could give you an answer and then in the next sentence tell you another like truth about life that contradicts the one I just said. But they're both true. So it's there's just tons, and we get so focused on the right answer, and it's always outside of ourselves. And the funny thing is, or at least what I've learned about looking at my relationship with my intuition and building it, which I very actively build my relationship with my intuition ever since becoming a coach, like journaling and really looking at how do I feel, what do I think, and what do I believe, and how are my beliefs changing? Because your beliefs change. You don't have to have the same beliefs forever. I could show you a bunch of things I tweeted about 3 years ago and tell you I absolutely don't believe any of it anymore. Because we are not static objects. We're not fixed. We change. We actually change, which is why it's funny to me when people pull up people's tweets from years ago and then try to condemn them today for what they said 3 years ago. Even when they do it to Trump, like, as ridiculous of a person as he is, I'm like, this is not actually a valid argument, y'all. It's not. Sorry. Like, we can come up with better than that. You know, we can do better than going back to 2011 and pulling up stuff he said and being like, why'd you say this? It's like, no, he's saying crazy shit right now. Let's focus on that. And so is everyone. So we could comb through anyone that it's just an invalid argument, you know. Anyway, so we're ever changing is what I was saying. And also, I love what you said about the connection between the two, because sometimes I think we get this idea of ourselves and who we're supposed to be. I certainly had it. And like, we're aspiring to this perfect version of ourselves, and we will never, ever get there unless, and not in the doing sense. Like, I'm not going to get up every morning and perfectly do my morning routine and always accomplish everything I said I would that day and go through every personal interaction perfectly. And that expectation is the thing that has pain be there. You know, one of the first forays into personal development that I ever had was going to Buddhist classes at a meditation center in Manhattan. And I had a lot of resistance to this. And I don't really relate to Buddhism as a religion. I don't think most people do, but I had it in that category, so I didn't even want to go there. And I don't know what force on earth had me actually go. Probably Elizabeth Gilbert's book Eat, Pray, Love, and that whole like fad of meditation that I actually got into and was practicing on a regular basis. But I started going to these Buddhist classes, to meditation classes essentially, and having my mind completely blown. And one of the things they talk about a lot in Buddhist teachings is suffering, and that suffering is self-created, and it's all based on our expectations and our stories and all this stuff. And I grappled with this a lot. I was pretty angry. And this is even like before I lost my mom, I was just struggling to understand how we're supposed to operate in this world, and what's the right way to do things, and what's the right way to be so I can get it right all the time. And so the classes were really difficult because they're all about unattachment and like peace and coming at everything from love. And it just sounded like a load of crap to me. And yet I kept going. You know, I kept going to these classes, and they were like $12 of a donation to the center, and you just sit there and you do meditation. It was so hard for me to meditate. It was so hard, which is kind of the point. That's like saying it's really hard to lift weights. Like, yeah, no duh. But you go practice and it gets easier, and then you take on more weights, you know? So I don't think meditation is just hard. I think it's definitely something that you practice, though. But that's where my whole journey around, and I'm sure it started before that, but in my mind, that's where I really started looking at how I operate and how I put my trust out there in other people and things, and I'm searching for something out there instead of looking within.
Love it. Yeah, it's like one of the, like for me, one of the things that has been most difficult, and something that I still struggle with, is that idea of an attachment, of just like detaching from how things look, because like so much of my life is about creation, is about creating universes from the ground up, from the blank page, from the blank sheet of paper. And I've taken on, without even knowing it, I've taken on a lot of that in my own life. I have a lot of dog hair just flying up in my face here. But I've taken on a lot of that in my own life, is that like I'm creating, like I've got it in my mind, like how I want life to go. And like it's like a punch in the gut sometimes when it doesn't work out exactly as I want it to, is exactly as I want it to. But at the same time, as I'm learning to detach myself and learning to like get unattached from how things look, from the outcome, from like the way it looks, rather than like the way that it actually is, then it's really opened up a lot. And I really appreciated what you said about that meditation class. That it just like that just like was like truth bomb.
It's so tricky because trust is the foundation of all learning. You know, like I feel like kids in school learn more when they trust their teacher. That usually starts with liking your teacher, but you don't have to like your teacher to trust your teacher. I just think really great teachers are people who garner trust first and foremost, and open the door for you to be able to learn something from them. Because otherwise you have your walls up and you're listening for where you don't agree with them, which is not a bad thing. I think it's great to be skeptical and not just believe everything you hear at face value.
Right.
But take it in and put it through your own little filters and see what you believe. And be open to changing your mind, like I was saying before.
Sure.
But when, for example, earlier this morning, I was just working on my business in the morning, just talking out something with my husband because he's been gone the past few days while I've been working on this challenge, this email challenge thing that I'm doing, and he started asking me a lot of really pointed questions. Now, my husband and I went through coach training together, and he's not an active coach, but he really likes to come from coach with me and provide me value. And after years of resisting it, I've just stopped resisting it, and I just let him. But I heard all of these voices coming up in my head as he's talking to me, all this self-doubt, all of this, you don't know what you're talking about, just like it was really loud. And luckily, I had just had my coffee, which I use Bulletproof coffee, which has this brain octane oil in it that makes me super happy, and a lot more able to hear stuff. I'm way more able to hear what my husband really thinks when I've just had it, so it's useful for our morning meetings. And so I just kind of like settled into it. And I don't mean like I have to have that in order to listen to him, but like it makes it a lot easier. And I just kept going. I didn't shut him down. I didn't put up a door or a wall or whatever, shut the door. I kept opening it back up. Every time it's shut, I'd be like, and you're coming back in. Keep talking about that thing you were just talking about, even though I want to yell at you and tell you why it's not going to work. Like, that was always, before I became a coach, my go-to. And if you were to talk to my friend Grace or anyone who's worked with me creatively or worked on creative projects with me, I'm sure that they would remember how much of a naysayer I was and how they bring up an idea and I go, well, here's the 50 reasons why that doesn't work or that's not gonna work. That was always my first reaction. And it still is, honestly, it's still in my brain. I just don't voice it or I tell it to be quiet because that's the part of me that will get in the way, not trusting that. And that's all a product of not trusting myself.
Yeah,
So,
that's
like,
so much about...
Go ahead.
No, that's really kind of what I was hearing from you too, that like the foundation of it has to start with you, that like the trust starts there and then you were able to trust what you heard. You were able to trust your connection with your husband. Like so much of it starts with trusting yourself to be in that space and in that moment.
The good news there is we don't have to wait for other people to change. We can do it from the inside, and then we will transform all of our relationships with people. So it doesn't matter if my husband is being a certain way, because honestly, like he gets all fired up and starts talking to me about my business, and it my very sensitive like inner being relates to his tone of voice and his energy as aggression. Mm-hmm. I was noticing it as he was talking. Part of the reason why I go into that thing is he'll talk and he gets really fired up, and my body relates to that as anger. And it's not. It's just him being passionate. But so my husband sounding really excited and passionate, I relate to as angry. And so then I start to shut down and protect and be scared, and I have a physical reaction. I get anxiety listening to him talk. And so it does take something for me to just soften and not make it mean stuff. And when that little script goes off in my head, danger, 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 I'm like, no, we're okay. We're okay. So I'm actively reprogramming the way I listen, because he has value. He has so much value for me. We don't have that many people in our lives that are willing to rock the boat. He's willing to rock the boat Always. He will just be like, well, that just sounds like a thing that you did 5 years ago. And you're probably, what structures do you have in place to make sure that you're actually going to go through with it? I'm like, we're just having breakfast. Why? But I chose him for a reason, and I think that's another thing, is to remember that even on a soul level, you chose everyone that's in your life right now. And and you do well to keep choosing them every single day and every single moment. And that's the secret to marriage, by the way.
Bam.
Yep.
Mic drop. Major mic drop.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. You gotta put that in a book.
I have an idea for a book. You just reminded me. The title is "I Love You, Stupid."
Oh my God, I love that.
I love it.
We need to write that book. Okay, lots of notes from this call. Here we go.
Yes.
I Love You, Stupid. I always forget that we came up with this idea, but we need to co-author a book, me and my husband.
Yes.
Please do, because just in that one little mic drop, there's so many juicy gems that people would find so much support and so much help from. I mean, speaking from someone who has been married, like, there's just not enough support around it, and so yeah, I would love for you to write that book.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm big on. I don't do a lot of relationship coaching. Like, I don't brand myself that way, and I haven't coached couples yet. Though I think my husband and I could do a pretty good job getting two people on and just going into it with them. But relationships are so important. It's relationship with self and then romantic right after that, in the order of priorities here. Because if that's solid, you could do anything. First you're solid with
absolutely, yeah.
This partner, there's so much possible in romantic relationship. It's not just about sex, it's not just about buying a house together or whatever you might think. It's that's your confidant, that's your person. And to have that, I mean, whoa. If I didn't have Justin, I never would have gone through the coach training program in the first place. I wouldn't have had the video career I had, because he helped me so much to mostly just get over my fear about charging a lot, about whatever. I was charging really high rates for my video work. So once I got into coaching, it was like a no-brainer to be able to get clients, because I had a lot of practice. And that was all because I partnered with him, and he just supported me. I've always had a mentor also. I think back, I've always had someone who's if it wasn't my significant other, it was another professional person or a professor. I could take you through every 5 years of my life and tell you who my mentor was at that time. I've always had somebody, and I always will have somebody, because there is no amount of training and practice and experience and success that's going to have me not need that. In fact, I will only need more. The more money I make, the more people I'm going to need on my team, because I don't know how to manage money. So if I do what I say I'm going to do and become a millionaire, I'm going to need a lot of people to help me, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Oh yeah. Team Michelle's gonna have to get a lot bigger once that happens.
Yes, it's gonna.
Yeah.
It's gonna. I used to think that you have to build the team first and then build the business. So I would hire people and spend lots and lots of money on assistants and get interns and all this stuff. I've had big teams working for me before, but I, number one, didn't know how to manage them. Number two, had no idea how to delegate, and I'm a control freak. So I want to do everything myself, like I said earlier. And number three, did not have the disposable income to be doing that. It was a huge investment and a risk, and I'm glad I did it. But I haven't had anyone on my team in a few years now, because I'm just waiting till it's really clear what they're going to be used for. Because if you hire someone and then don't have anything for them to do, then you just give them busy work and spend lots of money, and it's not a good idea.
Yeah, and the disgruntlement grows.
Yes, it does. Yeah, and the self-hate too, because why did I do this? Why did I take this person on? And now I'm going to have to fire them and ruin their life and all this. That can get really dramatic, and you don't need drama.
No. Gotta solve up my last coaching call, actually. But you don't need drama. Speaking of teams, it's something I would be remiss if I didn't ask. How has your life as a coach changed since you became a mom?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. You said something earlier about trusting your gut, and the process of giving birth is about trusting your gut. It's about trusting your body. And I went through natural childbirth at home, which is a unique and rare thing. And most people are like, oh my gosh, you didn't use the drugs. How'd you deal with the pain? And my main answer to that is I trusted my body, and we're built for this. We weren't plopped down on this planet and given drugs. We invented them at some point to make this whole thing easier. But we're neglecting the fact that our bodies work, and that we have even the power in our minds to control the way that our body feels. If you haven't heard of this man, Wim Hof, you have to look into him. You have? Okay, great.
I have, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Dude climbs Everest with no shoes on. And he does this breathing technique that has his body stay warm and regulates. Like, it's insane, y'all. And he's the real deal. He really has found a way to master his mind in order to control the way his body feels. And that was the way my labor went. So I did hypnobirthing, which is essentially learning different meditation techniques so that you don't experience pain in the labor process. And it works. And I mean, I've had years of practicing meditation, so it's sort of like saying, yeah, this really crazy strength training thing works, but only if you've practiced and you can lift some heavy weights, and I can. So I didn't practice so much once I was pregnant. I just trusted myself, and it worked out really well. And there were very few times during the labor process when it actually hurt for me. And in fact, the pushing part, which you would think is the worst, and on TV they're screaming, felt like amazing. It just felt completely amazing. It was actually, here's what I can relate it to. Do you ever have someone scratch your back and you're like, oh yes, like that sensation? That's what it felt like to push the baby out.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That
and my
is
midwife
incredible.
was like, you're so strong. How are you doing this? I was like, I'm not going to tell you, but it feels really good. So you can totally do that. So like the way that the labor or becoming a mom changed me, first and foremost, started with that process. And it was a vision I had. I wanted to be able to have this natural birth because it just sounded nice to me. And I wanted it to be at home, and I wanted this like really serene experience, and I got it. I created it. And the process of getting there was very tumultuous. The year leading up to that labor was really difficult for me. And then I got to see a vision brought to fruition for the first time since I had become a coach, because becoming a coach was a huge undertaking as well. I just wrote something on Medium the other day about the correlation between becoming a coach and having a baby, and how writing an ebook is more painful than natural childbirth. Because really was. I mean, it was much harder because I did a lot more of it by myself, but I did get a lot of support for the book. I could have used more. And so that whole process of seeing a vision and then bringing it to fruition and having the baby there, just that moment when she comes out, everyone told me that there's nothing like that moment. It's going to be so great. They were absolutely right. There's no way I could have known what that was going to be like until it happened. But oh my gosh, like holding this baby after you've carried it for so long and you just went through this whole experience is just otherworldly. And it's so grounding. And everyone tells me, even Christopher McAuliffe, the CEO of Accomplishment Coaching, I got on a call with him maybe like a month, or maybe, no, he came to DC to lead with me in Mark's stead. And he just turns to me and he goes, wow, becoming a mom looks good on you. She's really like chilled you out, which I could have taken offense to. Like, I wasn't chilled out before. I wasn't chilled out before. I wasn't. He's right. I mean, like, he's someone that I trust to see me when I can't see myself. And I just turned to him and I was like, yeah, it has. It's really grounded me in a reality. It's a reality check. It's a here's what really matters moment. And if I could do that, what can't I do? Which my coach is often, I think right after the birth, I talked to her and she said, next time that you say that you can't do something or you're in self-doubt mode, I'm just going to remind you of what you did here. Please do, because I'm going to forget. And I have many times. Many times in the past year. I just completely forget who I am and what I've done, and start to doubt and start to think I'm, worthless and I can never make a difference in the world and all this nonsense that we all think. It doesn't matter how many accolades you have. It doesn't matter how much money you've made. It doesn't matter. That stuff does not go away. but you might learn how to turn it down and make the volume lower. And really, the volume only goes up when I haven't had sleep, or I haven't been eating right, or I haven't gotten loved enough and hugs and, acknowledgments or whatever. When my well-being is out or my integrity is out, like there's a lot of stuff I said I would do that I haven't done, and I'm making myself shamed for it and all this stuff. That's when the voices get loudest. And that's when it's hardest to turn them down. It's almost like your arm doesn't work, so you can't reach the knob, and they're just loud, and you're like, I'm just going to play an iPhone game and eat a quesadilla and go to bed for the rest of the day. I cancel everything. I'm done. And I still get there. It still happens to happen a lot more.
Yeah, yes, it's like the moment when, it's like the moment if you're, we're all dog owners here, and it's like the moment that like your dog gets into the trash or something like that, and you start getting onto them, and they roll over on their back and like show them their belly, and like, I surrender, I surrender, I surrender. Yeah.
Totally.
Oh my God. I literally had a moment like that, like this week, where I was just like, again, well-being had just gone out the window, super tired, wasn't eating well, wasn't working out the normal routine because I just, quote unquote, didn't have time. And I just like felt myself spinning into this whole little like blah moment. And I have this thing that I do that I actually talk to a lot of my Reiki clients about, and I was doing it in my car at a stoplight, and I'm pretty sure somebody looked over and was like, what is she doing? I put my hand in my heart and I close my eyes and I take a deep breath and I say, remember who you are. Remember who you are. And it instantly brings me back into my body and back into my heart and slows my breathing down. And it reminds me like, okay, remember who you are. Because all this spinny, crazy, holy crap, the world is like caving in on me is again a product of a well-being breakdown. But it's also just the circumstances and the stuff. And it's like, come back to who you are. Remember who you are. Trust yourself. You got this.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the person next to me thought I was a little cuckoo.
Good.
Or doing something weird, which I was in the most awesomest way.
If they only knew you.
I think if it's a funny little worry that someone's going to think you're weird, because the more I talk to people, the more I realize that we're all just weird, and we all think that nobody's going to get us. And I had a client say something like, I'm so weird about talking about this stuff because so I like crystals. And I was like, me too.
Me too.
Like I have tons. And then she's like, you do? I'm like, yeah, I also talk to flowers.
Me too.
Yeah, so we see, like there's
what have I gotten into here?
If you think, because Ryan thinks it's weird, but Ryan's gonna be talking to flowers in no time. There's all of these things that might come very naturally to you, and so you don't trust it completely in yourself, so you're not going to share it with other people, and that's why it's so important to surround yourself with people who are unabashed about it. Unabashed. My friend Caitlin Naramore, who I just adore, and she was on my podcast, and she's just this amazing ethereal woman. She doesn't think any of it's weird because it's just the water she's been swimming in for so long. She's from California and Hawaii, and so being around her, it's all just normal. And the more I'm around her, the more myself I feel. And then when I go be with other people, it's easier for me to just be unapologetically myself, which is a note on my desk that I wrote like yesterday, just to remind myself, just do that. That's what you do. But yeah, the more people that you're around that vibrate in the same dimension as you, the better, because it just it's a good practice ground. It's like being at the gym among other people who are committed to the same things as you. It's just easier to say yes to.
So true. Oh my gosh, so true.
Yeah, and I think, just exactly what you said. Like, you're like those people who are like just like unapologetically themselves are the people that the more that I go through this work, the more that I'm drawn to. I mean, before I met Emily, when I first met Emily, I thought she was nuts. And I mean, I still think she's nuts, but I'm starting to believe it a little more. So,
Emily, it gets better, I promise.
Oh my God, it's so true. But like, I just, what you said just totally resonates with me so much, and being around people that do vibrate on the same frequency as you so much allows you to kind of like embody your own magic. and like embrace it as magic and allow it to be there. Like that's just what keeps ringing in my head like really loudly right now. It's just like,
It's also like, if you go back and you're around your family and they're not in on the same stuff as you, then they are going to relate to you as a past version of you, and it becomes even more difficult. It's more hurdles to get over, more self-doubt to get over, to just be who you are. I often find that people come into coaching, learn something about this, and then go and try and practice it at the highest gradient possible with their families.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always like, why are you doing that? That's literally like going to a CrossFit gym when you just started like running a mile on a treadmill every day. And then saying, I went to the CrossFit gym and I couldn't do all of the things that they were asking me to do. Like, of course you couldn't. This is like the hardest place to bring your transformed self to, and to stay in your truth and to be who you are and all this other jargon. But like, you have to be really gentle with yourself through the process of stepping more and more into who you really are, because the world will shake you. And that's kind of part of it. I think that's also that's the point, is to get shaken and see what you do.
Totally. And trust yourself. Like trust that you got it.
Yeah, it ain't nothing but a peanut.
Yeah. My favorite saying. It will always be one of my favorite sayings.
Did I ever share that with you? It ain't nothing but a peanut, yes.
You said it in an email chain yesterday. Yeah. Adorable.
Yeah, it became like a slogan for our coach training program here.
That's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. Speaking of coach training, talk about accomplishment coaching. Just how has that really impacted you? I mean, you're one of the leaders in the DC program, a program that I'm hopeful that we can get a certain very close relative of mine in maybe next year. But yeah, just kind of talk about how that's affected you and how that's how that's really become a passion of yours.
How hasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really everything, because and to give people context, I don't know who's listening to this, but like, you can become a coach tomorrow and just say, I'm a coach.
Yeah.
Or you can go through training, and I highly recommend training, because not just like it's the right thing to do and you need a credential or whatever. There's really no legalities around this, and you're not going to mess anyone up too bad by coaching them without training. But you're not going to survive very long as a coach without training. It's a job that requires constant self-reinvention. So even my coach, who was instrumental in starting coaching as it is, went through the coach training program with accomplishment coaching when she was already 15 years into her career or whatever, and a master certified coach. Maybe 10 years in. But like, that's something, I think we think one and done. We think school, degree, done. But coaching is really about continually reinventing. So, and that's the reason I stuck around in it, because you could do the year-long coach training program. It's a life coach and leadership training program, because we have them as synonymous. You could do that year, and then you can, move on with your life and be a coach, not be a coach, whatever. But your growth is going to continue. It's not like you get everything in 1 year and then you're done. It's just the start. It's the ripping off the Band-Aid. It's making the crack that lets some of the light in, so that you can continue on that in the next year. And I mean, for me, I got my marriage out of that. I got my daughter out of that. I got my relationship with spirit out of that. I got peace around my mom because of it, because I opened up my mind to things that I was quite cynical about. I mentioned earlier that I had a negative association with religion, and threw the baby out with the bathwater with that one, and just had no relationship to spirit, God, anything. And so going through basically in the coach training program, there are a number of different topics that get covered, which are all things that you might coach around or might come up in your coaching relationships. So we want to prepare all of the graduates with experience in these topics, some tools to work with in these topics, and one of them is spirituality. And I just had no relationship with that. I had no idea what that really means, all of this stuff. And right after we went through that module, I got contacted by someone who I then met Caitlin Naramore through, and who does a lot of, not Reiki, but some other sorts of modalities that are energetic and healing and things like that. And I wouldn't have even said yes to meeting her had I not gone through that weekend at accomplishment coaching. So much opened up for me. I could go on and on and on about all the things I got introduced to because of the work I did in the coach training program, and then how that it mostly just opened my mind and had me be less closed off. I mentioned that I used to be the biggest naysayer around. It's a miracle that I had a YouTube channel that got to 65,000 subscribers. It's mostly because of Grace, because she was like, let's make a video, let's promote it here, let's do this. And if she wasn't around doing that, I would have naysayed us right into the ground, because I was just too full of self-doubt to actually let any of it be successful. And that's also where I learned that I need partners in order to get to another level of success. I can get myself here, and in order to get any further than that, I need a team, because I am not a self-motivator. Not every day, like on a Monday maybe, or maybe I get real fired up on a Friday, but most days I'm just not. I'd rather lay around in bed and play video games. Like that's just how I've been my entire life. It's how I'm programmed. So it takes a lot to get me out of bed. But if I have a partner and an agreement with them, I will get up. I know the code. I've cracked the code to how to get me to do something, and it's just a matter of implementation at this point. And like I said, my husband's a really good partner in that. That's why we were able to have a baby so quickly. Because as soon as I started doubting it, he's like, no, we said, now get in here.
Take off those pants.
Yeah, seriously.
Hopefully,
You're basically quoting my husband. He's like, I'm going to put a baby in there. Like, that's my husband. That's the sexy talk, by the way. I'm so dead serious. But yeah, I could talk forever, because I've been with the company since 2012. First year as a participant, and then since then as a mentor coach, leader in training, and now I'm a program leader. And I wouldn't be doing this job, this extremely time-consuming, sometimes maddening, volunteer for most of the time job, if it wasn't actually providing me way more value in return. And that's something that you need to see. You need to generate the value, because it's really easy for you to just feel like you're being rubbed the wrong way and run away from it. Or you could relate to it as being buffed so that you shine brighter. And that's how I relate to all the feedback I get, all of the difficult situations I've been in and had to figure out how to navigate with the support of other people, which I'm really only now settling into, that I need to call Mark when I need something, and I need to get supported from him. Because even on Wednesday, I was having a rough day, and I messaged him just to say, like, hey, I'm having a rough day. I'm going to go take care of myself. I won't be on this call. And he just said, when can you talk? And thank goodness. Because I was like, talk about what? What's there to talk about? I don't need to talk. What did I talk? And then I ended up crying on the phone with him for like an hour. So, I needed to talk. And I didn't realize I needed to talk. He knows me better than I know myself. You need people in your life like that. So that's something I learned too, is that you really need people in your life who know you better than you know yourself. I need structure. I hate it. I rebel against it. I want, quote, freedom. So I don't work a 9-to-5 job. But I also really, really need structure every day, or else the part of my brain that just wants to play video games and eat ice cream is going to run rampant and win all the time, which is where I was before I got into coaching. Seriously, I would wake up at 2 p.m., get a 6-pack of Corona, order some cheese fries from the local diner, play Halo with my husband, maybe do a little bit of video work, a lot of other stuff. Just, I was not living my best life, but to a college kid I was. So I grew up in the program. That's really what it was for me. It was the opportunity to step into myself as a grown woman, which I did not relate to myself as. And on my really bad days, I do not relate to myself as a grown woman, which is funny because I have a kid. But it still happens. That little girl thing still creeps in. I'm just like this sad little girl, and I can't do anything for myself. And it lasts a very small amount of time, whereas I used to live in it night and day.
Yeah, you used to swim in it. It's like the little kid, like pulling on your shirt sleeve, like,
yeah.
help. Yeah. Yeah. I liken it to almost like, it's like what I think it was Da Vinci said about the when he created the Statue of David. It's like, I didn't create it. it was already there. I just uncovered it.
Yep.
So that's what I saw it as. That's what I saw that year as, and it's just something that it's just something that I'm going to be forever grateful for. Just considering that, not only did I really learn about myself and really learn about how I operate, but I made a new family.
Oh yeah, the community is amazing.
Oh yeah, no, the community is incredible. And in fact, I went to a observation a few months ago, ran into you, actually met Justin for the first time, met another one of our colleagues, a lady named Darren, who came in, and it was just, had an incredible time and just felt so connected, and just the community of coaches is just incredible.
Yeah, which you need because it can be really lonely.
Yeah, so yeah, almost like it's almost like my grandfather, who was a World War II vet. Even 30, 40 years after the war, he still kept up with the people in his unit. He still kept up with the people in his unit because those were the people in the foxhole with him. Those were the people dodging bullets.
Okay.
Those were the people dodging, dodging explosions. So, yeah. Now, you mentioned a little earlier, you have a podcast yourself. Talk a little
It's
about
called-
Naked. Yeah, talk a little about it.
Yeah, it's called Naked with Clothes On. And the format of it is basically just conversation, sometimes just me by myself, just talking to myself. And then I have some guests on. So I'll bring in people in the personal development industry. That's mostly been who it is. I'm pretty soon going to start branching out and bringing like my sister on. And other people who it would just be interesting to hear us have a conversation, to the people who follow me. And yeah, it's kind of organically growing. I like a lot of podcasts that are long, unedited, and just conversations between two people. And like I listen to Joe Rogan religiously, and Bill Burr.
Yeah.
And Bill Burr just talks to himself for 30 minutes. It's fantastic. He's hilarious. And James Altucher. It's my crack. It's my business crack. I wake up every morning and put on a James Altucher podcast these days because he's always got a good guest on, and he has great conversations, and he's so frenetic and hilarious. And I love that he constantly interrupts his guests to ask deeper questions. And yeah, so I started a podcast because I was listening to so many and just really loving all of them. And it's an easier format, honestly, for me, because I used to make these really high-end YouTube videos, and I don't have the equipment, the space, the time, or the energy, or the interest to do that anymore. And the next time I'm on YouTube, it's going to be because I have a team. And honestly, I'll probably be on Vimeo more than YouTube because my husband works there. And so it's a good idea. And I really like a lot of the stuff that they're doing on Vimeo right now. So I'll probably do more of a produced show versus a vlog, which is what I used to do, vlogs. I'm thinking about turning Naked with Clothes On into a show that I produce that's like sort of like a talk show, sketch show that's in the personal development comedy fusion area. But for right now, podcast, nice and easy to get done. And you could search Naked with Clothes On and find it.
Yep.
There's no other podcast by that name. I like to name things in a way where it's definitely not going to get taken up by anybody else.
No, absolutely, and we'll include a link to it in this particular podcast in the show notes, because I know that I've gotten a lot of it. I mean, just because of my connection with you. I mean, I like one of the parts of the rebranding of my coaching business was a conversation you had a few months ago with a guy named Adam Quiney. That was just incredible. And your most recent guest was a lady that both Emily and I know very well, named Alice Petzold.
Oh, yay! she's my old coach, and I absolutely adore her.
The best.
Yes.
Love me some Alice.
Yes. So we'll include a link to that in the show notes. But yeah, man, this has been fun. I mean, we're already well in an hour in this, and
see,
we could go forever. We could absolutely go forever.
That's what Joe Rogan does. He just has people in his studio. They drink bourbon, they smoke weed, and they just hang out and talk. It's great.
I love Rogan.
So great.
Yeah, I love Rogan.
How do I get in on that party?
Yeah, right? I mean, Joe Rogan has like 90 million downloads a month, so he's kind of the top dog. Not easy to get on this podcast, but it's on a lot of people's vision boards.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Emily, Magic Time After Dark. I'm just saying, You with me? Yes.
Oh man, I like that.
I
Yeah.
like it.
Well, like I said, we could go on forever, but it's just been a real privilege to have you with us here, and thank you so much for joining us. And as Emily and I stated last time, we, really the most magical part of any coaching conversation, really any conversation for all of us, is when we're able to reflect something to someone that just like really makes them amazing, that really like gets them connected with their greatness. So, Emily, do you have a question for our guest?
It's like my favorite question ever. But Michelle, what would you like to be acknowledged for
I knew you
being?
were going to ask me that. That's
Oh.
hysterical. Watch how fast I answer because of all my practice. I would love to be acknowledged for being raw, real, honest, and just willing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, Michelle, I so deeply acknowledge you for being raw, real, honest, and willing. Like, the way that you show up is so pure and so authentic. Most of the time, like we get to see the video, they don't, unfortunately, but most of the time I was watching you and just in awe of like how natural and comfortable and authentic you are in your own skin and how funny you are. Like I also totally acknowledge you for your humor and like the way that it's just so effortlessly woven into your being. And I totally acknowledge you too for your power, for who you are and who you are in the world, and like for the impact that you made on Ryan's life and then in turn on mine. I acknowledge you for your love of Harry Potter and for your love of magic because it radiates out of you and you can totally tell. And I mean, I'm sorry. I love to acknowledge people, as Ryan knows really well. But
You should have seen our graduation dinner. She like acknowledged like 15 different people. Yeah.
Oh, they picked well. Yes.
Yes.
it's my favorite thing to do. But truly, like it's an honor to get to be with you in the way that Ryan knows you, and to just kind of like experience you. You're brilliant.
Thanks so much. Y'all look great. Y'all.
Yeah.
Y'all. Oh, he's really rubbing off on you now.
Yeah.
He has. I've been saying y'all for years, partially from him. Also, my mother-in-law's from the South, so she lives with
I
me.
love it. I love it. Well,
Thank you so much, guys.
absolutely. And in our next episode, Emily and I are going to expand this conversation about trust and just really what it means to magical possibility and just really setting up your life.
Yeah. And in the meantime, we'd love to answer any of your questions. So drop us a line at magictimepodcast@gmail.com or on Twitter at twitter.com/podtime. No, I'm sorry. I messed that up. Twitter.com/magictimepod.
There you go.
Got
Yes.
it.
And there you go. And for more information on the show or for more information on Emily and me, just go to team-ryan.team/magictime. And Michelle, this has been a real treat, and we would love to have you back.
Ditto.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh,
let me know. All right. Fantastic talking to you both, and great luck to you with the podcast.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
And this has been episode 2 of Magic Time, a joint production of Love Living Holistics and Team Ryan Productions. Thank you so much for listening.
Until we meet again. Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
You've been listening to Magic Time, a joint production of Team Ryan Productions and Love Living Holistics. Subscribe now to the show on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/magictimepod. And if you have a question you'd like addressed on a future episode, or just want to connect with Ryan and Emily, email the show at magictimepodcast@gmail.com.